What's up, TMG family? Hey, welcome to the TMG Broker Experience Podcast. Mike Newton here in the Raleigh office. I have Blake Kiss with me, our regional sales director, licensed producer based out of Virginia. What's going on, Blake? How you doing today, man?
Doing well.
Awesome. Well, folks, Blake and I were talking the other day. Blake has a ton of experience. I'm going to let him introduce himself here, but we were talking about common obstacles that brokers face. Including himself, some that he faced over the years in regards to calling leads. So I'm super excited to have him on here today. He actually created a really cool PowerPoint that we're going to go through as well, so you can have a visual. So Blake, thank you for joining me. Thank you for talking about this topic, and tell us about you a little bit.
Yeah. So I got into the business shortly after college. And thankfully I had a lot of mentors that helped me stay in it. One of my biggest influences in the business told me once, he said, if you don't quit once a month, you've never worked in this stuff. So he made me feel a little bit better about having those down days that you have sometimes as an agent. But it started out as a captive W-2 agent. I guess I should probably try and withhold the name of the company. Maybe they don't want me saying that. But it started out as a captive W-2 agent. Did that for about 4 years. Was an independent agent for a couple years after that. Started my own agency. And wasn't long after that I was recruited by another company to manage and train a group of agents, a group of captive agents. And then now I'm on the independent management side again with Tidewater. So I like to think that I've been on both sides of the fence from an agent standpoint, and that I can identify and empathize with a lot of the challenges that our agents face out there today.
Which makes your individual value proposition is amazing, Blake. I mean, you bring experience from all sides, and today's topic, leads, calling leads, and how to handle obstacles, and just the PowerPoint that you put together. I'm so excited. So let's just jump right in. So folks, as you know, we want to keep these videos short and hit some topics hard. So Blake, what experiences have you had that made you feel you had to do a training like this?
Yeah, so over the years, having had experience on both the captive and independent agent sides, and then also having worked with agents who were captive agents that had made that transition to independent, one of the challenges that we kept running into was, as a captive agent, you're used to getting warm leads. You're used to getting leads that expect you to call. They expect somebody to reach out to them. They expect somebody to set an appointment with them. Those are not that hard to work. A lot of times those, they have very high close percentages. They're expecting to set an appointment to do something with you. Where I started running into challenges myself as an agent is when I got into the independent side of things and started having to call cold leads. And so the cold leads are a lot of those types of leads that come from the general purpose business reply mailers that we send out. And if you ever look at what they're actually responding to, I personally have never seen a lead that puts really bold, print right there on the front of the lead card that said, hey, an agent's going to be reaching out to you to try and set an appointment with you. I've never seen a lead card like that. In most cases, very fine print at the bottom. It'll say something like an agent may be reaching out to you. So it's important to understand that when you're getting these business reply leads, that in most cases, they're not expecting anybody to reach out. They're expecting something to be sent to them in the mail. So you've got another layer of obstacle to overcome when you're working those types of leads.
Man, that's solid. And the key takeaway there is the expectation from the senior, right?
Yeah.
And Blake, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that the expectation of the broker is that the senior is expecting a call, right?
Yeah.
They're not. So Great point, man. I absolutely love that. So let's talk a little bit about this. The lead temperature affects the approach. Let's talk a little bit about this, my friend. It talks about, being friendly, confident, excited. Hit on this a little bit here, Blake.
Yeah, so most agents, if you've been in the business for any length of time, you've had those experiences where maybe a current client has referred somebody to you, and when that person calls, or when you call them, depending on the product, of course, um, your approach is very upbeat. You're excited. You're happy to be talking to them. You're able to connect with them very quickly. You're able to say, "Hey, Mrs. Jones, gave me your number, told me to reach out to you, that you have some questions. I'd be happy to stop by. I'm going to be around this week." You're much more assumptive of their interest. And when you're assuming the person's interest, your approach is very, very different, because mentally you don't have the same kind of hurdles to jump as when a lead is cold, when they're not expecting to hear from you. So a lot of times when I talk about the lead temperature, I'm talking about how hot is it? Is it a referral? Is it somebody that's called into a call center that expects you to call? Because that changes the way that we speak to them. And you'll see there, on the slide, just some questions to ask yourself, because a lot of leads approach is about being self-aware. Mm-hmm. Just some questions to ask yourself. When you get a warm lead, when you get a referral, is it easy for you to be friendly and confident? You're kind of excited. You're upbeat to talk to them. Again, you assume that they're interested. And a lot of times, this is an important one too, that I've seen agents do over the years. When you get a referral from a client, you tend to call them multiple times. If they don't answer the first time, you're thinking, all right, no big deal. They might be eating dinner or something. I'll call them back tomorrow, or I'll call them back here in a few hours. On these cold leads, a lot of times, agents look at these like, man, I just got to get through this list. I just got to check these off. I just want to tell myself that I've called through these once. So the approach is different. And the purpose of this is take some of that warm approach and apply it to these cold leads that you get. Be cognizant, be mindful of the way that you approach these.
Love it, my friend. Love it. And you hit right here. Most agents will speak with cold leads coldly, uptight, nervous, doubtful, timid, scripted. And let's just call it what it is. Sometimes it is intimidating to call somebody that you don't know, and but they showed interest, right? Yeah. So Blake, Blake's been in this business a while, and just knowing Blake is very confident. He knows that if somebody reaches out in some type of marketing fashion, he's confident because he's helped other people. He's helped other seniors. So he has that confidence. So I love what you say there, my friend. Talk a little bit about this being overly formal.
Yeah. So a lot of times when agents call in, a lot of this has to do with observation as well. So I mentioned I've been a captive agent manager, and I've been an independent agent manager. I've held lead parties where we have call parties, where we'll have a bunch of different agents come in. We've got lists to go through. We'll kind of divvy up the list. And I've had the opportunity of going around and listening to how different agents approach, when they've got a name and a phone number and permission to contact, and that's it. And the ones who are overly formal, who are overly scripted, they tend to struggle with setting appointments, with getting to the point, with meeting the objective of the call. And when we're overly formal, you've all heard it. Maybe you've done it before. You call the lead and you say, hello, is this Mr. or Mrs. Jones? Yes, Mrs. Jones. My name is Blake Kiss. I'm a representative right there. It's just, the conversation is forced. They know you're trying to sell something. You're being way too formal. And it makes people uncomfortable. And I put on here, and when you think about yourself, and think about some of the situations that you've been in your own life. When you're in formal situations, if you don't have time to prepare for them, they make you feel really uncomfortable. Because when something starts to sound formal, you start to think that it must be important. And with important stuff, you feel like, well, I didn't prepare to talk about anything important today. I'm not prepared to discuss anything of any importance. And it really just causes the client to shy away. It's intimidating for them just as it is for you. And frankly, it's an annoyance sometimes for them. So you want to be careful that whatever pitch you're doing, whatever kind of script that you have set out for yourself, that it's not so structured that you don't have the ability to be flexible and to just have a conversation with somebody. You want to make sure that you don't create a script for yourself that keeps you in a box.
Relationships, man. Seniors want to talk to people, not robots, right?
Exactly right.
And Blake, I know you share this common, I'm obsessed with human behavior. And when you look at the data, the number one killer of seniors is depression, right? Mm-hmm. It's depression. These people are at home. I mean, they have nobody to talk to. So to what you're saying, if you're not overly formal and you're nice and you're confident and you're just having a conversation with somebody, that's what people want, right? Yeah. Now the sale will come on the back end, but they want to talk to a human being, man. I love it. Don't be a robot. Look, Blake today is not scripted. He is just talking out of experience for today.
For better or worse.
For better or worse, right? So I love this part of your PowerPoint, knowing the goal, right? Because, you talk about in this presentation that the sale is not the most important thing, right? But what would you say to people who disagree with that statement, Blake?
I would tell you that I hope I run into a lot of your clients' homes. Because and again, if you've been in this business for any length of time, you've run into homes where clearly to the agent that preceded you, the sale was the most important thing. And the member will explain to you, I can't get a hold of my agent. I've had these challenges. I haven't heard from my agent in years. Those folks are ready to switch. And sometimes they don't even care if the plan is all that much better, if they can just switch to an agent that they can get a hold of. The relationship is what's key here. And I've heard agents ask me, especially over the last couple years with the advent of all these call centers and the Joe Namaths and all that, Colin, they've asked me about retention strategies. And I've said, look, retention is about a relationship. That's all it is. That's how you hedge against that stuff. If your client knows you and you know your client and you're reaching out to them periodically, you have some kind of system. Some companies will call it a 30, 60, 90-day call. Some agents, they do a quarterly newsletter that they'll mail out to their clients. Some of them, it's a birthday card. It's thank you cards. They do a combination of things to make sure that the member knows that they're important to the agent. That's what walls them off from the Joe Namaths of the world. I recently had a client who, even sometimes when they can still be deceived by some of the telemarketing folks who can get really smooth at times, even when they get deceived, they'll call you after if they have a good relationship with you. I had a client recently that called me up and said, hey, Blake, I think I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And I said, what'd you do? And they said, well, somebody called me on the phone. And right then I knew, okay. But the relationship was good enough that they called me right after. We got it squared away. We got it figured out. So when we talk about agents that believe the sale is the most important thing, it is not, especially in Medicare. Medicare policies have such a short shelf life that they're going to be talking to somebody else about these at least once a year.
Yeah. And
the relationship is what matters. Another quick story, and then we'll move on, Mike. I don't want to take too much time, but I had another client that was convinced by another agent to go with them one year. The client calls me back middle of the year, and some of you listening may have had these experiences. The client calls me back and says, hey, can you help me with this? Now, a lot of agents, their response is, well, I'm not your agent anymore. I don't deal with you anymore. Good luck getting a hold of your other agent. Never burn those bridges, because especially in Medicare, these policies have such a short shelf life that they're going to be looking. So my response to the client was, I will do as much as I can for you, but I'm not going to have as much access to your information as I did because I'm not the agent of record. And what happened the very next day, EP, as soon as he got an opportunity to switch, He calls me.
Coming
I
back
can
to
get a
you.
hold of you.
Yeah.
You answer the phone. So anyways, when you're reaching out to these leads, make sure that you're trying to create a quick relationship, not just get to the sale when you're on the phone with these leads.
That's good stuff. Blake, just to kind of add to that, I was talking to one of our broker partners the other day. He's a Medicare broker, and a really good one too. And his business is very sticky. He doesn't have a lot of people leave. And I asked him, I said, what do you attribute to that? And he talked about the relationship, and he said, Mike, here's the one thing I do at every appointment is I ask the senior that I just helped, and I help them with this. I program my phone number into their phone, and I tag myself as my Medicare expert. And he tells his clients, if anybody calls you about Medicare and it does not say my Medicare expert, which is me, hang up the phone. Hang up the phone. Now, he's having to re-educate some of his clients because Humana and United are calling for other things. But he was like, when my people get phone calls, if it doesn't say that, they don't pick up. They just don't answer the phone. And I was like, you know what? That's genius.
Yeah.
I'm going to share it with the community.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And he says it takes them, just 2 seconds to do it. So great tips there. Okay, so Blake, relationships. I've heard you say that so many times in this. Let's talk about how do you develop that relationship? And you've got it titled here, a recipe for it. Walk us through that.
Yeah. So this is, and it's titled a recipe. It's not a science. And right. So I want to point out too, and I touch on this later in the presentation, but being good over the phone is an art. It's not a science, right? There's no magic formula of words that you can use to close a sale every time or get an appointment every time. But it's important that you pay attention to what you say, and that you work on this, you practice it, and you be genuine. So when we talk about creating relationships, one of the things you want to do is make sure that you establish within the first few seconds that you're local, right? Because they get so many calls from all over the country, as you just mentioned, Mike, that it really helps to establish credibility if you can make sure that you're letting them know that you're local, right? So one of the ways that I get to that really quickly when I'm on the phone is, hey, Mr. Jones, this is Blake from right up here in Christiansburg.
Love that.
That's how it starts.
Love it.
And you establish really quickly that you're around the corner. You're within 30 minutes. You're within a half hour. You're close by. You'll see there, if you're not from the area, that third bullet point there, you can make reference to things that suggest that you're there frequently, right? One of those is, hey, Mr. Jones, this is Blake. I'm from up here in Christiansburg. Are you near that Blue Ridge barbecue? I eat there all the time. That every time I go down there. Have you eaten there?
Man, that is good stuff.
That kind of stuff, it breaks the ice really quickly, so that they know that you're from around and you know the area. And that helps to break down one of those barriers right away, so that they're not thinking, this is somebody calling me from Texas or California or out of the country somewhere. So make sure that you establish some locality when you're in the very first few seconds.
Good stuff.
Avoiding the yes/no questions. This is one that takes practice. And I've got some examples in the slide of some of the yes/no questions. This is one that excuse me, Mike.
No problem. You're dropping a lot of nuggets here, Blake. Take your time.
Sorry. So this is one that I had, that I really had to practice on, especially when I became an independent agent. I would catch myself a lot shutting down my own conversations with people by asking them yes/no questions. Most of the time, you can identify these if you reflect on the conversations you've had and how quickly they shut down. You want to have a conversation. That's how you build relationships. So if you'll go to the next slide, Mike, I've got some examples here of some common yes/no questions that we ask. This one here that you'll see on the slide here, Now I actually have to pull it up on my end, Mike. On your screen, it's a little small.
Oh, sorry about that.
That first one is this Mr. Jones? Nope. I mean, that's how many people, when you think about calling friends and family, when you think about your friends and family that you call, when you call your best friend, Mike, when you call me and I answer the phone, do you say, "Hey, is this Blake?"
Blake.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. When I call you and you answer the phone, I say, "What's up, Mike?"
Yep.
"Hey, Mike, got a question for you." You know, we jump right into the conversation. So even when you're working with these leads, saying something simple like, "Is this Miss Jones?" It's a dead giveaway that you don't know Miss Jones, right? The better option there is to just assume that it's the person. If it's a husband and wife, it sounds like a man's voice. I'm saying, "Hey, Mr. Jones." That's exactly how I'm getting into that. This on the yes, no mistakes. Are you doing okay today? Yes, no. How have you been? You can't answer yes, no to how have you been. The reason I like this how have you been question, and one of the ways that I tend to approach a lot of these leads is, "Hey, Mr. Jones, how you been?" When they answer the phone, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, how have you been?"
You sound like a friend calling.
That's exactly right. And how have you been suggests that I knew how you were.
Right.
And so maybe they're thinking, "I know this guy."
Right.
Somewhere. And then when I say, "This is Blake from up in Christiansburg," they might be thinking,
"Did I meet this guy somewhere?"
Last week. Yeah. Did I meet him somewhere? And so right away, you're starting to break down some of those barriers. They're on the phone more often. When we set appointments, we often ask yes, no questions. "Can I set an appointment to come to see you? Would you like to set an appointment?" Nobody wants to set an appointment.
Right.
You set appointments with doctors and dentists and lawyers. When you're talking friends and family, you don't set an appointment. You stop by.
Yeah.
That's what you do. You swing by. "I'm going to swing by and drop some stuff off to you real quick." When you get into setting appointments, though, I do like, as you start to get into that, looking at some of these suggestions of hey, what days of the week work best for you? And then sometimes you can even suggest a couple days to the lead, and you can say, "Hey, I'm going to be down in your area on Tuesday and Thursday. Which of those days works best for you?" And you're giving them a choice. It's not as easy of an out as saying, "Can I come by on Thursday?" Nope. It's
Right.
not. You're not giving them as easy of an out. And then if they say, "Well, I guess Thursdays work best," afternoons or mornings typically better for you? "Well, I guess mornings." And then you pick the time as the agent, and you say, "All right, I'll be down there at 10:30 or at 9 o'clock on Thursday morning, and I'll drop some stuff off to you real quick, and just let you put a face with the name." Some of these others, "Are you happy with your coverage?" Instead, try, "What do you like about your coverage?"
Stay positive.
Yeah. "Are you interested in making a change?" That's a yes, no. "What would you change about your coverage to make it more ideal?" Right.
Good.
And the conversational question, "Are you from this area?" Instead, "How long have you been here? How long have you lived here?" So just avoid some of that yes, no stuff.
Love it. And for everybody tuning in today, Blake is awesome. He made this PowerPoint transparent. So if you want a copy of it, just let me know. I can send it to you. Because I'm sorry about it being a little small on my screen, but I can shoot it over to you, to the TMG partners that are interested. All right. Don't say appointment.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this. I mean, the word appointment, and that's one of the things that I coached agents on over the years. The word appointment just has a negative connotation.
It does.
Right. Instead, say, "Hey, if you don't mind, I'm going to swing by. I'll swing by and drop some things off. I'll swing by and introduce myself. I'll stop by and drop you off a business card." To us, to the agent, that's an appointment that goes in my calendar. To them, It's not an appointment. You're stopping by real quick.
Blake, I love how you take a question and you take it from it sounding negative to sounding positive, right? Like, "Oh, well, what do you like about your plan?" Just having people talk, because you're so right. When we get these calls from people, like, look, we've all got the car warranty calls, right? I know for me, I take those calls because I try to recruit them into our industry because those people are hustlers, right? But I listen to them and they're so aggressive and they talk so negative. And I'm just like, man, if you could just tweak the way you ask, like change your ask, I might be more apt to even buy a warranty from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love how you reverse that and you gave the most common yes nos. Blake, just straight nuggets here, man. I love this. This is awesome. This fires me up. Try asking for commitments with, if you don't mind. Touch on this one, man.
Yeah. So this one, I was struggling in the beginning when I first started insurance at getting commitments at all, and part of it was I was asking a lot of these yes, no questions. And even when it came time for the enrollment, right, I've gone through the whole presentation and I'm saying, all right, well, are you ready to fill out some paperwork and get things going? That just creates an opportunity for, I don't know, I'd like to see my options. It's only October, 18th. I'd like to see. And one of my mentors told me to use this phrase. He said, I've used it for years. It's been 40 years in the business. He says, I've used this phrase for years and it's helped me out a ton. He said, it's a way to ask that gives you an opportunity to tell them what you're going to do. And so using that same example of an enrollment where you're saying, Mrs. Jones, are you ready to fill out this paperwork today? Miss Jones, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and get this paperwork started and we'll get you squared away. It's a much, and very rarely, and not even a specific time that I can remember, have I had a client say to me, you know what, Blake, let me stop you right there. I do mind. Very rarely have I had that happen. And like I said, I can't think of a specific example. But you see there, it's a very passive and friendly way to get permission that allows you to be the one in control of here's where we're going next. And this is not one of those manipulative things. Don't get me wrong. If your client is clearly uncomfortable, remember that this is about relationships. Okay. If your client is clearly uncomfortable, if there's some discomfort there, you don't push them. That's one of those ways that you can really sully your relationship, and you can really mess up your reputation, especially if it's some of these small town rural communities.
Blake from Christianburg.
It can spread really quickly that hey, don't let this guy in your house. He's super pushy. Yeah. So you want to be aware of the comfort level of the client, and don't push the client to do things they're not comfortable with doing ever, even if you know that it's best. And there's many times when, as the agent, I have known that choice A is better for this person than choice B. But I respect the client enough to let them come to that understanding. And sometimes the answer for the client is, if this one helps you to sleep better at night, if you feel better with this one, let's stick with this one. Yeah. This one, I can show you spreadsheets and math about how this works. If it doesn't make sense to you, let's not do it. Let's stick with what you're comfortable with. So don't get the wrong idea when I'm talking about using if you don't mind. But it is a way, again, when you make these lead calls, these calls to leads, if you don't mind, I'll stop by this Tuesday and drop off a few things. What time works best for you? You're getting permission to come by on Tuesday without asking a yes or no question. If you don't mind, I'll review your coverage real quick with you. Instead of saying, can I review your current coverage? If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and get this paperwork started. It won't take too long. That it's just it's an easier way to get the commitment. It's a non-threatening way to get the commitment. It makes the commitment part of the appointment, of setting the appointment, of the enrollment, it makes it feel less formal, less final, less like a white knuckle decision. Yeah. And that's what you want. You want to be able to put clients at ease.
Love it. Love it. Let's put it all together, Blake.
Yeah, so I tried to type out a quick script here of how I use some of this stuff. And again, you want to be very, very conversational. So as I mentioned earlier, don't box yourself into too tight of a script. Be flexible with things. But here's just a sample of how it might go. Hi, Mr. Jones, how have you been? This is Blake from up in Christiansburg. And then you've got some local stuff you can talk about. How much rain did y'all get last week? Well, it was terrible here. Did you get any flooding down there? Whatever the questions are that show that I'm familiar with this area. And then that next section, well, listen, I know you're busy. Really quickly, about how many calls a week are you getting from these people wanting to talk to you about Medicare? I've used this one before on setting appointments. And the guy said, oh, they call me like crazy. And then I said, listen, that stuff drives me nuts too. I'm a local agent from just up the road, and I just want to let folks know that there's somebody close by here that can help you with the Medicare stuff. You don't have to deal with these 800 numbers. I'm going to be down your way this Tuesday and Thursday. Which of those days would be best for me to just swing by and drop a card off to you? And that's all you're doing. You got to remember with these leads, I'm not trying to sell somebody over the phone. And I don't try and bait and switch. When I get over there on Tuesday or Thursday, I'm pecking on the door. I'm reminding them of the conversation we had. I'm giving them a card. And I'm saying, listen, give me a shout when you get calls or if you have questions about this stuff. And I'm getting permission to contact them during AEP. I'm building an AEP pipeline. I'm saying, listen, I like to reach out to my clients every year as the plan changes start to come out. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and put you on my mail list or go ahead and put you on my call list so that I can help keep you up to date on what's going on as well.
That there's so much value in that. So what Blake just said, all right, folks, so today is July 21st, right? And we've got, say, 3 months for AEP, right?
Yeah.
Blake is building his pipeline right now with those permission to contact forms. It's genius.
Yeah.
It's genius.
And this doesn't have to, I mean, Mike, agents can start working on this stuff. You can start with these leads, these direct mail leads, however you're getting them. I mean, you can start building that pipeline earlier than July too. I mean, you can start building that pipeline, right around OEP if you want.
Go into AEP and have a full schedule.
Yeah. But yeah, don't bait and switch. So don't get over there and when they open the door, you told them you're going to drop off a card and then you're trying to bully in the door. Now, if they start having the conversation, get your SOA and have the conversation. But do what you said you're going to do. Stop by, introduce yourself, and be curious about these people.
Yeah.
Ask them about their dog and their kids, and build a quick relationship with them before you leave. So.
That's right. Just remember that that's somebody's grandparents.
Yeah. Could
be yours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So folks, here in this PowerPoint, Blake's got this. It's a script is what it is. It works for him. So that'll be included here. So this is a cool little, I like this here, Blake. It's an art, not a science. And, this is something a lot of us sales professionals struggle with. We overthink things. Yeah. We try to be robots. We try to say the perfect script, the perfect rebuttal, the perfect. And, for a lot of us, what that does is it freezes us.
Yeah.
Right. Talk a little bit as we wrap up here about how this is an art, not a science for a robot.
Yeah. Being real is better than being perfect. Yeah. Right. You do want to keep in mind, these are some things that I've observed and worked on over the years that have worked for me. I have seen my personal ability to set appointments and get in front of people has really increased as I've tried to be mindful of and make some of these adjustments to my speech. This is stuff that I've come up with. I hope that some of it's applicable to you, that you can take pieces or parts of it and increase your ability to set appointments. But you also want to find your own style. Be genuine. If the way that I speak to people in rural Virginia is probably not the way that you're going to speak to people in Raleigh. Yeah. There might be a different cadence there that you use. You might just use a different conversational format. Whatever it is, be genuine. The other is you do need to practice open-ended questions. This is something that is really hard to do if you're not conscious of it. We have a tendency, all of us, to kind of default to yes or no questions, especially when we're calling people on the phone for the first time. And it's just, I don't know what it is. I'm sure there's some psychological explanation for it, but when we get uptight and we get a little bit nervous, it's hard for us to think of questions to ask people that are open-ended. So that's something that you want to practice. This idea of giving your prospects choices, Tuesday or Thursday. I'm going to be down there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, afternoons or evenings. Giving them choices instead of an opportunity to leave the conversation. And then, don't be afraid to experiment with things and make mistakes. That some of these points on here, have fun, try different wording. Remember that there's going to be another phone number, and that we deal in our industry more with batting averages than we do with free throw percentages.
Amen.
And what I mean by that is, if you're setting 3 out of 10 appointments, you're doing really well. Don't expect that you're going to be, setting 9 out of 10 appointments on these cold leads that you call. So be patient with yourself as you're working through this stuff, and take a few minutes before you dial the next number to stop and ask yourself, okay, what did I learn from that interaction just now? What worked? What didn't work? Why did that, did I say something that upset him? Did I say something that made him think I was from telesales somewhere in another country? What did I do? What did I not do? What did I do well? The intro was really good. We kind of hit it off, and then they were shying away from me at the appointment. What happened? Where was the breakdown? Be analytical about it to a point, but to Mike's point, not to the point that it paralyzes you. The other thing to keep in mind is that calling leads and cold calling, this should be a part of what you do, right? This can't be everything that you do if you expect to be successful. It should be a piece of it. One of the questions that I get from agents a lot when I'm working on marketing plans and business plans with them and identifying some different activities for them to do, one of the questions I'll get a lot of times is, well, Blake, is this really a good use of my time? Is this really effective? My response is, that's the wrong question. The question should be, is this more effective than fill in the blank?
Love it.
Is calling these cold leads more effective than setting up review appointments with your current clients? Maybe not. Is it more effective than sitting on the couch waiting on the phone to ring? Oh, yeah.
Love it.
So make sure that this is a part of what you do, but it doesn't have to be, the whole kit and caboodle, right? So hope some of that helps, Mike, and hope it didn't go too long today.
Nah, man, this is fire, and I love at the beginning of the training you said, if you haven't quit at least once a month in this industry, you haven't been in this industry.
You've never worked in it. That's
truth.
Right.
It's so true. It is. But Blake, as you know, somebody who's been doing this a while, it seems like you start here and then years later you look back and you're like, how did I get to where I am? How did this even happen? Right. Yeah. And it's doing this stuff. It's quite honestly, it's just Blake's being Blake. And he said it he's genuine. He's Blake from Christiansburg, Virginia, and he wants to talk about the barbecue restaurant.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I took from it. Blake, thank you. Folks, I'm gonna this PowerPoint is available. This is Blake's information on here. Blake at tidewatermg.com. Blake is our regional sales director for Virginia and Tennessee. Awesome addition to our team. Wish I could talk to him more, but he's a busy guy. But man, just thanks for joining me today, brother. This was awesome.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Good luck out there.
We'll see you.